Okay, we are live on YouTube. Now we can get this on TikTok, which is easier.
So
Okay, we are fully live everywhere.
wonderful. I'll make that announcement. Really excited about this episode. Kind of our first chance to introduce this idea of a civic utility company.
Yeah, really trying to bring it down to average speak so people could understand. We have a very complicated mission and trying to simplify it for average people. It's been a challenging road just to be able to articulate. Want to fundamentally fix politics and representative democracy, and how do you do that? How do you explain how you're going to do that in layman's terms?
Yeah, both layman's terms, but also just finding what people care about. So much of politics is maybe the language is over their head sometimes too, but also it's bringing it down to the emotional level too, and having people care, feel empowered about politics too.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Hey, Carrie, welcome to the live. We'll get going in a couple minutes. Waiting for some people to pop in. Got a good one for you, Carrie. Though it's going to be a good episode. Thank you for liking the live. Cool. Yeah, so we'll get going in a couple minutes. So hello to people checking us out on TikTok, and we're on YouTube as well. Just waiting for a couple more kind folks to pop in before we get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, we'll be starting in about a minute or two. Say a minute.
I really enjoy how today's theme of the utility company is going to tie back to your background, Travis.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy when we loop in the visuals and the topic.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I mean the village thing is definitely like our best analogy, and then the utility thing just locks that in.
Yeah. Yeah, we we work really hard behind the scenes, everyone, to uh, conceptualize FiNC's mission, but then make it accessible visually, verbally, um, textually. I don't know if that's the right word for that, but we put a lot of effort into these, and are always excited when we see that it hits with somebody. Welcome to the live, Becca. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so we'll at the 40 marker we'll get cooking.
Sounds good to me. Look at us, over 500 taps already. So thank you to those tapping the screen. That's always helpful for us. Appreciate that love. So again, before we get really started, we're on TikTok and YouTube. But yeah, let's get this party started. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the live. We are FiNC, Future is Now Coalition, and you can think of FiNC as your civic utility company. So one system that plugs everyone into a fair, citizen-owned democracy. And as America plugs into it, it will showcase every candidate equally, lower barriers to grassroots efforts, and make participation simple. So less waste, more representation, and built-in accountability. So these shared standards will keep leaders answerable to the people and reduce the sway of money. And that's what we're all about here. So plug in, be heard, and get results. And before we dive into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, friendly reminder, tap your screen, tap that heart, jump into the chat, ask us your questions, share your comments, and hit follow. We're on the road to 1,000 followers, and every little bit really helps us, our growing organization. So again, welcome to our live. Today we're going to be talking about FiNC as America's civic utility company and what that means and how you can plug into it. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Travis. So Travis, can you explain how it's more than just technology as part of this civic utility company?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that's the biggest part of what we're doing. It's not really about the tech itself. It's really about communication infrastructure and operations. It's really about the framing of what we're doing, like how to get people to work together across their differences, political differences, as well as just how people can collaborate on the digital age. So like, yes, we utilize technology, but like, everything utilizes technology. So like, if you're a shirt printing company, you're still using a site to build your website, and you're using tech to, take the orders and process payments. So, like we live in a tech world. Those are the tools. So it's not really the tools themselves that we're focused on, because the tools actually already exist. It's how we use those tools to empower America is the key. So we really want to help people understand, like what we're doing is basically we want to plug every American into democracy. Right now, it's confusing from citizens' perspective. It's confusing. You don't know who to trust. There's all this misinformation going around, the extremes on both sides, the establishment's narrative, and only their approved narrative is what they want to travel. So you have those issues on the citizen side. On the politician side, they right now need to raise millions of dollars just so their voice can travel to the voter. And that's not democracy. It shouldn't be who could raise and spend the most money. It should be who can who represents the people, who can who can earn your vote, who deserves your vote. And so, by plugging every citizen into the system, every politician into the system, and every journalist into the system, you you bridge that barrier. Instead of needing millions of dollars for a politician to be heard, if we all just plug into one communication infrastructure, they don't need that millions of dollars, and it's a win-win. So from the citizen side, you just want to know, what are my choices, who's running in this seat, what do they stand for, some of their background information. So you want them all in one place as well, so that benefits you. And then on the politician side, if they're all in one place, they don't need to spend millions, and they could focus more on legislating and representing you, and what they should be focused on. So kind of in a nutshell, it's really about communication infrastructure and building a standard for communication where like every politician can speak and every citizen can hear them and be heard themselves, as well as journalists being free to speak. And then from there, be able to collaborate, and be able to work together, be represented, all these different things. So again, the tech already even exists. So it's not about the tech. It's just, how do you bring the tech that exists together? How do you bring America together, citizens, politicians, and media together? And that's what we're all about. So it's really about the human side of it, and implementing what already exists into society to help improve representation.
Awesome. So I see a couple people joining us. So I'm going to do a quick reset. So welcome to those joining on TikTok and YouTube. We're FiNC, Future is Now Coalition, and we are your civic utility company. So one system that makes democracy fair, simple, and accountable. So less waste and more representation and built-in accountability. Those shared standards will make leaders answerable to the people and reduce the sway of money. So plug in, get heard, get results. yeah, if you're just joining us, feel free to say hi in the chat box, and remember to hit that follow. We're on the road to 1,000. Back to Travis's point, something I really enjoy is, so much of the scumminess that people perceive politicians and kind of the political system, it's like, oh, why would they listen to me when all they do is raise money? But in the reality, they need to raise money to get reelected, right? So they have to play this dirty game of raising millions and millions and possibly billions and billions. So if it's needed in the current system, but if it takes away from a politician's time and it dissuades us from, maybe being more participatory in the election process. I really like what you're saying, Travis, about the win-win situation. Politicians can spend more time legislating, talking to voters, right, doing what we elected them to do. So it negates that need for them to raise that money. But also, as a regular voter, if they no longer have to spend X amount of time raising money, aren't you more represented when that person, gets to get pen to paper and actually talk about policy and legislation? So it's this, kind of a snowball effect of winning. If we take out the sway of money and the need for money, and what this new system that we're building really provides for us.
Cool. Yeah, totally. And the politicians, again, they would prefer this. Like, maybe not the guys at the grossest top of it, but like, any genuine politician that actually sees themselves as a civil servant, they want to represent you, they want to be a good politician, they would love this. Right now they're like Liz said, they're so pressured to raise so much money, and because the system is built this way, like you can't even blame them. Like they're forced to sell their soul basically to the highest bidder because they need like so much money. Decades ago wasn't this expensive. It just gets worse and worse. The competition rises. Money in politics gets more and more legal as time goes. And so they they have to play this game or they don't win. And so what we're talking about is making that easier, that they don't have to do all that. They don't have to go raise all that money, have fancy dinners, and just connect them more to you. Like, especially with with the digital age, they much rather be able to go on a platform and see how many in my district want this type of healthcare versus that type of healthcare. Where does my district stand on social issues? Where does my district stand on whatever? They should be representing the majority, like whatever the majority of their district wants, that's what they should be representing. That's what democracy is. Especially a representative democracy. Republic, which is what we're in, is a representative democracy. So it's all about like districts, and you represent a specific district. Well, right now they don't represent their district, no matter where they are. They just represent those that are bribing them. So anyway, so as a utility company, number one is that communication infrastructure. So just connecting independent media, grassroots organizations, underdog politicians, and everyday citizens into this one system. And then the second thing is operational infrastructure, and that's more about just standardizing like how different organizations could work together. Ways that independent media can shine a better light on these grassroots efforts. We talk about this a lot on our show, and in general, that you could talk to a lot of grassroots politicians. The people that are not being bought out by the big money, they get ousted out of media as well, because the establishment media will not give them attention. If you're not establishment approved, they're going to be biased and you will not get as much airtime than your establishment counterpart. So this operational infrastructure, another one of our goals is about connecting politicians to the independent media, so that independent media can be the magnifying, the megaphone that the establishment media refuses to be. You could ask third party candidates, independent candidates, even grassroots candidates within the two major parties. They can all tell you that this happens to them, that they're ousted out of debates. They're not allowed to go. They basically don't show up on talk shows. Yeah, every now and then you get somebody on stage, but it's few and far between. And like, there's millions of wonderful politicians out there that you would actually really like, and just they get drowned out by the ones that sell out, and the establishment makes sure that the establishment candidates are the ones with the voice. So operationally, we want to build more standards of like how to connect politicians, grassroots politicians, to independent media. We want to connect grassroots movements and other political organizations, and how they could collaborate digitally as well. We're building a lot of partnerships lately with these different political organizations, and they still have a hard time finding how to digitally organize with one another. Because the landscape has changed. Protesting and calling your senator only goes so far. Now with the digital age, things move faster, things move daily. It's not enough to do a protest every 3 months. Something needs to keep moving digitally. And a lot of organizations know this, but they're still learning, like, how do we work together digitally? How do we engage digitally? How do we sync up better? So that ties into operations and communication. So we're building different ways for organizations, media, and politicians to find where they align. And that's what we're calling clusters. We're building these action clusters that, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, third party, independent, whatever your political lens is, that's fine. But we want to focus on what are the actions that you want to take. It doesn't so much matter you call yourself a this, you call yourself a that. Let's focus on, you want this type of healthcare, I want that type of healthcare. Let's work together to make that happen. So we're building a system of these action clusters so that people can be matched where they find common ground. So again, it doesn't matter, it can be progressives and libertarians who are very different sides of the spectrum in general, but there's some commonality where they'll be in the same action cluster, not in every same action cluster, but there's commonalities. So with the operational infrastructure, there's a lot of layers to it, but it's basically easier we want to make it easier for citizens to participate in democracy, to make the right choices for yourself. Does this candidate really represent me? Who do I want to vote for? Once they're in office, are they representing you still? And accountability. There's no accountability these days. We want to build that into this operational infrastructure. We want it to be easy that, hey, that guy promised XYZ. That's why I voted for him. And now that he's in office, he's not doing that. And so we want to map it out, make it easier, standardize how to see that information, how to hold these people accountable to their promises. It's human nature. If you're not held accountable to anything, everyone needs to be accountable to someone. And these politicians, it used to be that you had a lot of different journalists that would hold them accountable, but now with the establishment media, you don't get that so much. Yes, independent media does it, but they also need to be amplified as well. They need a louder voice to really have a stronger influence to where it is today. So that's kind of a bit about the operational stuff. It just, again, it's about like simplifying make it easier to participate as a citizen, make politics more accessible to the average person, as well as helping amplify the grassroots efforts of organizations, independent media, and the good politicians that should be winning and are not. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so I see a lot of people joining us. Welcome, everyone. I'm gonna do a quick reset, and then I want to talk a little with Travis about what he just said. So welcome to those just joining us. We're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, and we're FiNC, Future is Now Coalition, and we are the civic utility company. So one system that makes democracy fair, simple, accountable, right? Talking about less waste, more representation, and built-in accountability, and having these standards that keep leaders answerable to the people and at the same time reduce the sway of money. So welcome to everyone. Feel free to jump in the chat, ask us questions. We want to hear your comments. But going back to what Travis said, something about something about FiNC that I really enjoy, and the plan and structure that and the vision of FiNC is, where else are these opportunities for a better democracy out in the public, right? We all know that money shouldn't be buying, politicians, but where's the dam in that river to stop it? We all know that we should have better media options, but where is that being created? And so building the civic infrastructure to better connect all of these different pieces of democracy and to make it more user friendly, I think is just such a natural upgrade to politics, right? We're not living in the 1950s where a politician needs to buy, X amount of newspapers or billboards or something, right? We have the digital age, sharing, liking, digital opportunities to speak like we're doing now is such a natural forward progression of democracy. Um, and it goes back to, like, where else are these things being even maybe talked about but actually built? And I just love that about FiNC, that it's not only a place for talking about bettering democracy, but building the tools and digital infrastructure to make that happen.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. That's a lot about the clusters, is focusing on like taking action, not just complaining about it or the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Shoulda, coulda, woulda is not going to change things. Like if, like Democrats should get rid of their big donors, they should represent their voters. Okay, yeah, but they're not going to. So that's not a solution. But yeah, so we already just talked about, the first two pieces is that communication infrastructure, operational infrastructure, and then the third thing is about pooling reach, pooling like the marketing cost of what people are doing. Whether it's a politician's campaign or a political organization's marketing, or independent media's marketing. The bottom line is, like, marketing costs, campaigning costs are are pretty much one of the number one overheads of any company, private or political. So for example, there's wonderful civic technologies that exist today. There's ones that potentially could do like politician report cards. There's ones that can track like like who's on the ballot. There's ones that help find the right voters, and there's just so many different technologies that exist out there, but just most people don't know they exist, and therefore they never succeeded. So there's a lot of technologies that existed that are basically they shut down as a business. They built the technology, but they couldn't take it anywhere, because marketing is such a high cost, and it's a chicken or the egg. How do you get people to pay for something if they don't know it exists? But you need to spend money so they know that it exists. So again, whether it's marketing an independent media, it's marketing political organizations, or it's you're campaigning for politicians, it's all marketing. And so what we're doing is trying to build a way to take the burden off of each individual grassroots effort, and find a way where, like, you're an individual, politician, an organization, whatever. We want you to have your autonomy, run with whatever ideas you have. But if we could interconnect you into a broader infrastructure and then pool that marketing, that's how you overcome that issue. Right now, essentially the establishment has that marketing. If you're an establishment politician, the media is going to give you airtime, and the establishment organizations are going to give you money, and they're going to lift you up, and they're going to promote you, because their agenda is going to be filled. They're going to make more profits by doing this, so they're going to give you a loud voice. So everyone that's tied into the establishment, they're all helping each other. They have this ecosystem. They have a system that gives them a voice. So you're going to see, somebody's going to run for office. You're going to see 1 million billboards for them. Long as they're establishment approved, you'll see a bunch of billboards and commercials. And everywhere you turn, you're going to see their name because the media is on their side, the party leaders are on their side, and the money's on their side. So we need something to rival that. So we want to build what we're calling a meta movement, a movement of movements. Even if these movements are not all aligned up, we all have different policy stances, different viewpoints, different ideologies. That's okay. We have to find a way to work together. Work together where we have common interests, and then don't work together when you don't agree on things. So again, like we mentioned earlier, that's what we're calling clusters. So, anyone in the meta movement, you're coming to push for true citizen representation. You're there to get money out of politics. You want to change the system in whatever way you want, less government, more government, whatever, but in a different way than what the establishment does. So we want to give you a voice, give you a structure, and help you have a voice. So this meta movement, the goal is to amplify one another's efforts. That independent media should be amplified over establishment media, and the grassroots underdog politicians should be lifted up above the establishment politicians, because they're actually going to run. They're not bought out. They're not sold out. They actually want to represent you. So pooling reach, pooling the marketing ability of what they're all about. That's what that piece of this is all about. And then the last piece, we'll go into this in more detail, the village analogy, but essentially it's like, imagine each organization and politician is a different building in a town. It's like, if we just need to market the town, and then when people are in the town, then they could see which stores they want to go inside. And and that's a metaphor for the organizations, politicians, media. So if people are more in the same place in one shared digital space, it just takes that burden off of these groups. Grassroots, we want to support grassroots. It's like everyone, most people want to support small business over big corporate business. It's the same thing. Grassroots is basically the small businesses of politics. So yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought up the village analogy. Because something you said earlier, Travis, was being a grassroots movement or a grassroots politician, so much of that is a shared burden. And I like that word you said, burden, right? Because it's about connecting to the voters/audience. It's about getting that reach with marketing and just visibility, how to get your message out, right? So as FiNC is described as a civic utility company, right? What does that mean? Water, gas, electricity, trash, sometimes. So in this shared space, if the burden can be lifted en masse, right? Everyone gets water, everyone gets electricity. But for here, everyone gets visibility. Everyone, shares. It's easier to reach your demographic. If all of those things were worked on in a collective manner, and the gap between audience and movement or politician could be shrunk, right? What could that mean for democracy? What could that mean if it's no longer a steep uphill battle just to be seen, right? Once that barrier is overcome, wow, more people can hear the message, and that message can be shared to more people. And so it's just again, it goes back to that win-win-win situation. Shrinking the gap between message and person, getting more amplification for politicians that actually represent us, and doing that, without the need for the money and the kind of the BS of the system today. And so that's what I really wanted to hone in on, that, we all know what utilities are. You pay that every month. But it, no single organization or grassroots candidate should have to fight that alone. If we made this a systemic, or a systemic system, that burden can be shared and therefore more easily overcome. And so I just think that's such a conceptually, that makes so much sense, that if we all have the same problem and we all work at it in the same way, what could that really mean for moving that needle of democracy forward?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so kind of summary in this section, for the citizens, it's about simplifying the participation. You could join a cluster that you agree with. This is where I stand on healthcare. This is where I stand on social issues. And then we match you to independent media that align with what you like, the politicians that you want to vote for and support, the political orgs. And then eventually be able to compare candidates, track receipts, accountability, stuff like that. For the underdog candidates, it's about giving them equal discovery, showcasing them all equally, setting up open debates so they have more of a chance to show what they stand for and what their actual solutions are. In today's age, it's just performance. Performative politicians. Debates are not. They don't have substance. They don't tell you how they're actually going to fix things. They just knock the other guy basically. So this would be building standards for debates, as well as really tracking promise versus delivery on these candidates, because right now they could promise the entire world, and then who's gonna call them out for not? Journalists don't do that anymore, at least not the establishment not the establishment media. And then for grassroots orgs, we help them align up to other partners that are aligned to them, help them do digital activism and digital coordination. Right now we're very small. We just have like 10 to 15 organizations that we're starting to work together and align our social media efforts and whatnot. But we're building everything that's going to be very scalable and very quickly scalable. Once we get the people backing, we can scale up just as quickly as we get the backing of the people. And then for independent media, it's about building those bridges between the media to the underdogs, politicians, the organizations, build out the trust signals, who trusts who's promoting this media as genuine media. That's a big problem right now, is like, most people don't trust the media anymore, as you shouldn't trust the establishment media. But you need media. We all need to know what's going on. So, building a better infrastructure that can help find who you could trust in independent media. And again, that just, like, for us, we don't care where they stand politically. Journalists are always going to have a political leaning. Like, you kind of can't not. Like, yes, you report the news, but there's a lot of subjectivity. There's explaining what's going on. So, they are going to see it through their own lens. But, so we're not going to limit who's allowed to do that. What we care about, are they trying to give objective information? Are they trying to give you the truth to the best of their ability? And usually that's what independent media does. Establishment media, they're selling you a narrative. They're selling you the establishment approved narrative that their advertisers and the political elite are the ones that are telling them what narrative to sell us, because they want to sell us their reality to work in their favor. So that's how we're going to help each of these different groups.
Awesome. I see some people joining in. So just a quick reset that we are FiNC, Future is Now Coalition, and we're talking about being the civic utility company, better connecting grassroots organizations, underdog politicians, independent media, and you guys, the citizens, right? If there was a shared space where all of these organizations and people and media could talk better, share resources, right? And have better chances of being discovered outside of the tight party lines of today. And you actually being represented by these clusters rather than, right, what color inside of the aisle you're on. So welcome everyone, feel free to jump in the chat. We're talking about, we're about to talk about less effort and more impact, right? Right now, politics, it's messy, it's complicated, and gosh, representation is nowhere to be found. So how do we make it simpler, digestible, and actually usable for the regular folks? And with that, I'll pass it back to Travis.
Cool. Yeah. So just touching on this briefly, so as we're talking about, a lot of what we're talking about is operations. I know that's not always the easiest concept to grasp. That was my background before I started Futures Now Coalition. I did operations, process improvement. I go into an organization or whatever, and I help create the processes that get it to function the most efficient way possible, the best way possible, high morale. And so that's actually kind of how I see government, and is like the government is the operations of our society. They're supposed to make sure the system is functioning properly, as efficiently as possible. And obviously that is not happening right now. But that is how I see the role of government is operations. And that doesn't necessarily mean stronger or weaker government. That's up to America to decide overall. It's just a matter of it's about the processes, and can we do a process where most America can be happy? Ultimately, it should be the goal is to make Americans the happiest and the healthiest at the most efficient way possible. And however that, there's a lot of ways that can go, but that should be the goal of government. So I just want to read what they're saying. So all in all, it's we're talking about doing the operations in this case is about finding ways so there's less of an effort to make more of an impact. The average American, they don't want a second job just to be involved in politics. So a lot of people would want to be more involved if it wasn't so complicated, if they felt that what they're doing makes an impact, and that they know where they should stand. And so that's one of our major goals. Like we've been saying, simplifying participation. We want it to be easier for an average person to navigate. Where should I stand on issues? What politicians should I support? What media should I be listening to? Those are all hard questions these days. The trust, look at any kind of polling on this stuff. Trust in media is at all-time low. Trust in politicians, all-time low. Satisfaction in government, all-time low. Or at least in modern history. So we want to, build a way, now that we live in the digital age, there's a lot of good that could come from it. We haven't exactly utilized all the good from the digital age that can be. We haven't reached the potential as a society of what, digital media, I know a lot of bad sometimes comes from social media, but the beauty of it is that for the first time, any American can say something that millions of people can end up hearing, as long as people like the idea and they share it out. That's never happened before. That normally it would cost millions of dollars for millions of people to hear what you have to say, and now it could be done essentially for free over social media. So that's so just making this more efficient. That's part of the operations. Make it simplified. Where do you align? We're gonna find the cluster that represents where you align. Find it and then connect you to the right people that align with that as well, and help you take action, help you make a difference in whatever way that you're willing and wanting to contribute to society. Go ahead.
Yeah. For me, when we talk about clusters and making politics more digestible and a more user-friendly experience, what FiNC cares about is your representation, your ability to step into politics and feel not lost in the sauce of the language or the process or what have you. Because a lot of politics today, it's hard to understand, it's hard to participate in, and even when you do participate, you don't get that full cycle of representation once your voice is heard. And so I've said it before on previous lives. Be selfish, right? If you're a regular Democrat, regular Republican, if you're third party, wherever you stand on a political identity, we're not here to convert you to something else. We're here to say your party, right, the actual people that you elect and are in government today, they're not doing much to represent you. So be represented. Find a place and find policy that actually represents you as a full person, not just the boxed in agenda that the establishment gives to you. And I just really encourage people. Um, how often, and maybe this hasn't happened to you, but I know it's happened to me. Uh, I'm a registered Democrat, but I believe in things that a lot of Democrats are against. Does that make me not a Democrat? Do I have to switch parties just because I disagree on one or two things? So what clusters and this digital space really provides is a full person, full value um, expression of yourself. You don't have to tick all the boxes of a certain party. You get to tick the boxes that reflect you and your values. So I wanted to add that in of be selfish, right? Be represented. A democracy demands that the people are satisfied, with the decisions being made in the halls of Congress. And right now, look at the numbers. That is not happening. So, at FiNC, we're saying, you know, find where you actually align and do something. Plug into these organizations and politicians that do align with you and help move them forward.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, actually, so what Carrie said in the chat there, that's a great point. That gives, like, what we're offering to here is, like, when you're stuck in one box, you don't really have choices. You kind of, whether it's conscious or subconscious, like, oh well, I'm a Republican, so this is where I stand on all these issues. But what we're doing now is, with what we call digital politics and these clusters, is softening that break of, like, hey, you could basically choose a la carte where you stand on policies. You don't have to say, oh, because I'm a Democrat or because I'm a Republican, I have to follow all these stances. Like, we want to soften separate you from that label. That label doesn't have to define your entire existence of what you believe in. And so that, so then it gives you that chance to, like, oh, well, we're now, if I'm not locked in that, oh, just because I'm a Democrat, I have to agree with A, B, C, D, and E. It's like, okay, where do I want to stand on this issue? So it opens up for self-reflection, and we want to build a system where, A, it's not, you don't have to be shamed that just because you identify as one label that you agree on something different. We don't want you to feel shame that you're changing your mind. In today's day, they make you they make you feel really bad that you change your mind. Humans should be able to change their mind. People, we're human, and when you're presented new facts, there might be information that changes your opinion. Like, we should be allowed to do that. So that's part of this as well. So I'm going to show the village piece here now. So this is part of the analogy. Like, we're framing it that, like, we're basically like a utility company. Let me just turn it on fully. So basically the analogy is that, like a utility company, just turn that on here. It's like the meta movement that we're creating is akin to, like, imagine it's a town. Sorry, almost done. Here we go. Okay, there we go. So yeah, so this is the DP village, let's say. So the analogy is, so imagine the meta movement we're building, a movement of movements, is like this village. And so the way we're demonstrating it is, in the front there, you see FiNC, our logo. So it's like kind of like two roles. The first role is we're the welcome committee, basically. So we welcome you into the village and say, hey, this is the meta movement. And then basically it's like help you orient yourself that this is where the political organizations are, these are where the movements are, this is where politicians are, here's where independent media is. So you find what you want in there. So you see, like, there's a radio tower in the back that kind of represents the independent media. In the park, there's, like, people voting and represents the politicians. And then the buildings, the commercial buildings are the organizations, and then the houses are the average citizens, as well as the people. And so we're like the welcome committee. So we're like bringing people in, and just helping them orient themselves. We're not saying, oh, you need to go to this store, you need to go to that store. It's up to you. We're saying, oh, here's where Republicans tend to go, here's where Democrats tend to go, here's where libertarians tend to go, here's where independents go. We're going to just show you where things are. It's up to you to decide where you want to go. And so that's us as like a welcome committee. And then also we're the utility. So we're the connective tissue. We want to make sure that every building, every citizen, every politician, that you have power connected, the water, the gas, like that you can function in whatever way you want to function. And we're not telling you what to do with that electricity. You could do bad things with electricity, you could do good things with electricity. That's, we're giving you the electric, you do it how you want. So the analogy there, metaphor there is like plugging you into democracy. So imagine the concept of America's democracy is like a cloud, and we're basically plugging that gas into every home. We want to plug you into democracy so that you are connected to every politician, every journalist, and have the ability to pick and choose which ones you like. So building one unified place, the way, the whole, all of America's politics essentially lives in America. We're basically building a digital layer of that. So like this town, we would be the utilities there, the welcome committee. And then the last thing about it, like we're saying, the pooling, like doing the kind of like the marketing, it's like, we just have to market that this village exists, and every American come on board. Every politician, we're going to make things easier for you. Come join the village. Every independent media, come here. We're going to give you a voice. We're going to connect you. We're going to connect you to more people. We want more citizens to hear more independent media. We want the grassroots politicians to have their voice. So again, it's like every candidate seen, every citizen heard, every journalist free to speak. And this is kind of how you do it. It's all it's just a digital metaphor for, bringing people into one shared space, something that America will own. We're not going to get into today, but it's legal. We're literally building it where every American will have an equal ownership stake of this technology, of this shared space. So it's super, super democratic in so many different levels. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah. So for me, being the civic utility company is, providing that equal footing so everyone can actually get to what they're actually meant to do. If we're using metaphorical language, if I have a hardware store, my job is to sell you hammers and wood and shovels, right? It's not, oh gosh, I know about shovels, but I don't know how to make electricity work. So if you don't have to worry about the basics, and you can actually get to talking to the customer, right? Talking to the voter or the org, if you can actually have those conversations and actually sell your product or speak your message, that's what organizations and politicians and indie media, that's what they're actually there to do. So if we could level out that steep hill of marketing resources, getting them on a digital space for shared spotlights. If all of those things could be handled in a way that actually allows their message to come across, because we've talked to a good dozens and dozens of organizations, and so much of their effort day to day is getting the message out, not about actually talking the message, but how do you share the message. And if that was easier, and you could actually plug into a larger base of shared resources, but also a shared audience, we could actually start talking democracy rather than just, oh gosh, I got to wait for 4 years to have my voice heard. So it just really allows the needle to move forward in such an effective manner. Because again, if I'm here to sell shovels and wood, I don't need to worry about if my water is running, right? So it steps over the need that is blocking a lot of success from these grassroots candidates, grassroots organizations, from that exposure to people.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I really like that. Yeah, like each of these organizations, the politicians, they should focus on what they're supposed to be focused on. Like your politicians should be good at representing you and legislating stuff. They shouldn't need to be good at raising money and marketing. Yeah, that's such a great point. We should really lean on that going forward. Yeah, that is so true. We want everyone to focus on the part that they're doing. Like each person in this system are trying to do some part of bettering our system. They're supposed to represent you, legislate. Political orgs have their own supposed to have good agendas of like improving a healthcare, improving a certain issue, bringing awareness to things. So yeah, basically we want to take away the burdens that they deal with, and allow them to just focus on their main thing, and then pool these other efforts. So yeah, we plug in your electric, your gas, and water. You don't have to worry about that. The garbage, it gets taken out. All that stuff. Yeah, great point. So getting towards the end here, so a lot of this is also like just having built-in accountability. But really, it's politicians need to be held accountable. The media needs to be held accountable. Politicians or political orgs even need to be held accountable. Part of the whole thing is that especially media right now, like they're not being held accountable. Like I know, like a lot of drama is going on the media, and it's really just holding power accountable to each other. It's not holding power. Not holding them accountable to you. It's not holding them accountable to the truth. None of that kind of stuff. So they're not being held accountable. Like independent media does get held more accountable in a lot of ways because they're accountable to you over social media. So we want to capitalize on that accountability for the politicians. There should be consequences. If a politician is elected and they're not fulfilling their promises, they shouldn't keep getting reelected. Like we talk about this all the time. Like Schumer, like Chuck Schumer is he's been in office from like millions of years, and he has a negative 12 approval rating, negative 12% approval rating, and yet gets reelected year after year. I think actually the numbers we saw, like the average senator gets like almost 100% of incumbents in Senate get reelected. And then in the House, it's something in the high 90s. And yet their approval ratings are abysmal. So like, how do they keep getting elected when no one wants them in office? It's insane. So like, the system has to change. We need to have accountability. They need to serve the people, serve down to the people, not up to power. And so we want to systematize it, make it easier to understand the difference between these people. A lot of like what we talk about with digital politics is looking at the system as up versus down. Is this person up serving and serving the power, serving big money? Or are they down serving? Are they serving you as somebody that's not in power? You're a voter. You have the right to decide who you want to vote for, but they should serve you, not the ones that give them the most money. So this infrastructure would be building in accountability and stuff like that. So with what we're doing today, some of our plans is long term, like building this shared digital space known as digital democracy. But right away, we're building out this meta movement. We're connecting to these different allies and building these partnerships. Bridging the gap from independent media to the political organizations and politicians. And so there's a lot happening today. There's a lot in plans for the long term. But it all comes down to bringing people across political divides under this core issue that we all feel we're not being represented. We all feel that democracy is falling apart. Whether you blame it on Trump or it's been more than Trump, it is more than Trump. He is the symptom, not the problem itself. And this is the solution. This is the way to resolve it. And it's a solution because it's not one solution. It's connecting America's solutions that already exist, and they're just being drowned out by the establishment and the big money and those already in power. So we're not saying, oh, we have the answer to healthcare and this and this and this. No, it's just if we connect this, if we just plug in this missing utility that everyone should have, it would work itself out. Not overnight, not too super smooth, but like you plug in every citizen, you plug in every politician, you plug in the independent journalists, and things will start working itself out. It's just right now, it's just up to whoever spends the most money is winning and has the voice, and that's what's crumbling democracy. So any final thoughts, Liz?
Yeah. My final thought is where do you find yourself being represented? When we have conversations with regular folks, they say, I feel represented. I don't need your new ideas. I feel represented. Representation, it's not a feeling. That's great that you feel represented, but statistically, data points, you are not being represented as a unique individual. The only things that get recirculated, it's Chuck Schumer, it's Nancy Pelosi, it's Mitch McConnell. These people that we don't even like, right? We don't like what they're doing, but they get reelected. Their policies get talked about, not our dissatisfaction with them. So it's really about finding opportunities to be represented, and that's what clusters are about. Finding what matters to you, buddying up with other people and organizations and politicians that also want those things, and moving that needle forward, right? It's about action, not just thoughts and feelings. And apologies if that's crass, but it's about finding real ways that are accessible and simpler, user-friendly, to get democracy, back on track, or make a real democracy, however you see it. But yeah, just be selfish. If you're dissatisfied, let's find ways to get you plugged into, a stance or a politician or organization or some way, to get democracy meaningful to us as regular citizens again. But with that, exactly, Carrie. Yeah, if current politics loves to keep us divided, right? It loves to keep us organized by, left, right, blue, red, whatever. But a lot of us agree on so much more than the establishment gives us credit for. And if we could build real power behind that, what could that mean for tomorrow? And with that, I want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us on TikTok and YouTube. We will be back on Tuesday, the 30th. Again, TikTok and YouTube at 2 o'clock Eastern and 11 o'clock Pacific time. And again, keep tuning in, give us a follow. And we're always happy to hear your comments, your questions, and just really engage with you guys. FiNC doesn't have all the answers. We want to build this with America. So put our feet to the fire and check us out.
Yep. So yeah, check us out, futureis.org. Our handle is futureis.org on most platforms. We just updated our website, and a lot of new milestones that are around the bend that we're working on, connecting and collaborating with different allies, and just want to connect with the people too. So we're here, we're listening. Want to hear your thoughts and feedback as well. So with that, we will see you next time.